Glickstein come grab the final set of instructions, including the verdict forms for all of the defendants. And then Deputy Martinez, you would pass this out. There's just says who that goes to in the front.
Yes, Judge.
Okay. And the bailiff is handing out to you all the final copy of the jury instructions and the verdict forms for each of your clients. Okay, are jurors back?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Let me see. And it's Glickstein, correct? Yes. Yep, he's there.
Oh, he is?
Yep. I know. And the doctor that was reading the scans, he was using a lot of, I couldn't understand it. Like, I hope Ashley.
People say that any kind
I know. Okay, very good. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and let the witness in to the Zoom. Hello. Hi, Dr. Glickstein. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. We're about ready to get going.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and bring in our jury. Which? Okay. What's up?
Yes, yeah. So since Dr. Glickstein is appearing by Zoom, I'm going.
Okay, we ready to go?
There's two of the rest of the.
Okay. You all make a decision yet about the alternate situation? No? Okay.
I don't have an issue with only having one. I have concerns about letting them pick.
Okay. Well, then we'll just go with the next person up would be the individual that I discussed already. So I'll break the news to him. Okay. No, I won't. Oh, yeah, just toss that.
And I'm missing one of my mitigators.
Which one?
The defendant has a history of physical and emotional abuse as a child consistent.
Oh, okay. I will make that change, and then I'll just give you an insert. I think when I sent them to my JA, I made the change here, but it didn't make it to her copy. So I will make that change. All right, you ready to go?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, let's bring them in.
All rise. All jurors are in, Judge.
Okay, very good. State, call your next witness.
State would call Dr. Marc Glickstein.
Okay, sir, if you please raise your right hand to be sworn.
Can you raise your right hand?
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this class will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
May it please the court.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name.
Dr. Marc Glickstein.
And sir, how are you employed?
I'm a diagnostic radiologist.
And do you maintain your own practice or do you work for some other facility?
I have worked for the University of Pennsylvania in the past.
Okay. And in addition to clinical work, you also provide forensic and consultation services in the legal realm.
Yes,
And for how long have you done that?
over 30 years.
Can you tell the jurors your educational background, doctor?
Yes, I went to undergraduate at Brandeis University outside of Boston. Following graduation, I went to medical school at Yale University School of Medicine in New Haven. I then did a internship and residency in internal medicine at Yale New Haven Hospital. And I then went into radiology, doing a radiology residency and following that with a radiology fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania.
Can you tell the jurors your work history in the area of radiology, diagnostic radiology, and internal medicine?
Yes, I've been employed from 1987 through this year. I worked for about 28 years with a large group in Connecticut. We had a large teaching hospital as well as multiple other peripheral hospitals and outpatient centers. Following that, I moved to Florida in 2014 approximately, and I had a few positions down here before I started working with the University of Pennsylvania about 6 years ago.
Do you maintain hospital privileges at any facility?
Not currently, no.
Have you previously held hospital privileges?
Yes, at more than a dozen hospitals.
And did that include a hospital that is associated with the University of Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Can you, well, let me ask you this. Do you hold any board certifications, doctor?
Yes, I'm board certified in internal medicine and radiology.
And what academy or society awards that board certification?
It would be the American Board of Internal Medicine or the American Board of Radiology.
Doctor, do you belong to any societies or other regulatory agencies or bodies in the area of radiology?
Yes, I've been involved with a variety of societies in the past. Currently, I only maintain involvement with Radiology Society of North America, American Röntgen Ray Society, But in the past, I've been members of a variety of other societies. I've served as a consultant for the health department in the state of Connecticut. I served on several advisory panels for Blue Cross Blue Shield, and that's most of it as I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Okay. And how long have you been practicing in the area of radiology, doctor, in total?
About 40 years now.
40 years, okay. Have you ever testified previously as an expert in the area of radiology or diagnostic radiology?
Yes.
How many times?
More than 100.
And in what jurisdictions, doctor?
Well, I've testified in numerous cases in Florida. I've testified in cases from many other states. I don't know if you want me to list them, but there's probably over 20 different states that I've viewed cases from.
Okay. And doctor, in your capacity over the last, I think you said 30 years doing consulting work in the legal area, have you consulted on both civil and criminal cases?
Yes.
And in criminal cases, have you consulted and worked on cases for both the prosecution and the defense?
No, I only have done cases for the prosecution.
Okay. And in the civil realm, have you worked in both plaintiff and defense sides of the civil practice?
Yes.
Now, this case involves testimony in a penalty phase of a capital murder case. Have you ever testified in a setting like this before?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
Just one, as far as I know. Maybe two. I'm not sure.
And are you licensed to practice law here in the state, or practice medicine, excuse me, here in the state of Florida?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to the jurors what the medical field of radiology deals with?
Sure. Radiologist is a physician. I'm an MD, and a radiologist specializes in medical imaging. Before you get to be a radiologist, you have to do some general medicine training, but a radiologist is the one that reviews and interprets all of the imaging that comes from hospitals and imaging centers. We review the cases, issue reports to the referring clinicians, and serve as a consultant to them.
And when you're talking about imaging, what type of technology are you talking about?
Well, imaging can be in the form of x-rays, it can be CAT scans, MRIs, nuclear medicine studies, PET scans, ultrasound. Those are all the modalities.
And as to MRI technology, can you explain to the jurors what that involves?
Sure. Well, an MRI is a machine, many of you are probably familiar with that, but it basically looks like a large cylinder, and the patient is placed into that, and with the use of very high magnetic fields, signals can be detected by the computer system, and those can be reconfigured and reinterpreted into actual images. So it uses a different technology than X-rays. It uses the high magnetic fields.
Okay. And X-rays use some form of radiation?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And do you have training and education and experience with MRIs?
Yes.
And is there a type of MRI, a DTI MRI?
Yes.
What is a DTI MRI?
Well, DTI imaging is a type of MRI where basically fluid that travels in the neural structures, which are called neurons, or the axons of, or actually neurons. They are contained by a sheath that separates them from the rest of the brain parenchyma. And the DTI imaging will evaluate the flow of fluid in these neural structures. And what it can do is ostensibly identify various tracts or connections between the brain. And you can see those and color code them for different directionality of flow.
So when you said earlier that as a radiologist or a diagnostic radiologist, if a physician is referring a patient, the patient is prescribed to have certain imaging such as an MRI, that image will come to you to conduct an evaluation of that image and give your opinions on it or your impressions?
Correct.
And then you would consult with the treating physician?
Correct.
Would that be true for a neurologist who has a patient who sends the patient to have imaging done?
Yes, it would be the same procedure, I would imagine. Every case doesn't involve a direct consult, of course. Usually there's just a report that's issued and delivered to the clinician, and then if there are any other issues, you would talk about it further.
Okay. So the report, when you prepare a report, does that have some type of a signature or name? Not your name, I mean the name of the type of report that you're preparing.
Yes, it would.
And what is that normally referred to when a report is prepared by a radiologist?
Just a radiology
A
report.
radiology report, okay. So, but you're looking at images that have been submitted to you by whatever, I guess, laboratory that prepared those, and then you're evaluating them and preparing a report to your findings?
Yes.
Is that accurate? Okay. MRI, DTI, and MRI images, is that something that you have dealt with over the course of your career?
I have dealt with it, yes.
How long has that technology been utilized in medicine, especially obviously in radiology?
It hasn't been around for that long. I couldn't give you I mean, there have been, early studies where it was more experimental and really not clinical. So those may have happened sometime earlier in the past. But I would say, in my experience anyway, I've probably seen it over the past 5 years or so. I haven't really come in contact with it before that.
With MRI technology or specifically DTI?
DTI. MRI, I was thoroughly trained in MRI. I was when I started my practice in Connecticut, I was the first physician in the state with actual fellowship training in MRI, and I've been doing MRI since 1987.
How many times do you believe that you may have conducted a review of MRI imaging and prepared a report or acted as a consultant?
I mean, I couldn't even put a number on it. Thousands.
And so I would assume with those would involve looking at actual MRI imaging going back into your education. That would be probably in the tens or hundreds of thousands of images?
Yes.
So DTI, that form of MRI, has only been around for the last less than a decade, I guess, from what you're saying.
Don't hold me to that number, but I think, as I said, in my experience, I have not seen it used prior to that.
Okay. Now, in this case, were you retained by the state of Florida late last week to consult, in this case, in a legal capacity or medical legal capacity?
Yes.
And when you were retained, did you provide a fee schedule to the state of Florida?
Yes.
And that is your personal fee schedule for your work or services?
Correct.
And could you advise the jury, please, of what you are charging the state of Florida for your testimony in this case as far as your, first of all, your work on the case?
Yeah, I would bill $3,000 for my testimony today.
For your testimony today, okay. Do you know what the total amount you will be billing in this case with your review and testimony?
Not off the top of my head, I would say, I don't know offhand. I'd have to sit down.
Was there, in the fee schedule, was there a $2,000, like an initial fee to review materials, possibly?
No, this would be, well, yes, there is that fee for reviewing the materials, yes.
Okay. And then your testimony today, you said would be $3,000 approximately?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been provided with a series of slides that are in a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
And do you have that presentation, and are you capable where you're at by Zoom to publish it so that the jury could see it while you're testifying?
Yes, I can put that up on my screen if you give me a minute to just get my orientation here. Let's see. Just bear with me for 1 minute.
Yes, sir. That's fine, doctor.
Sorry. Okay, I can show that to you now. Let me just share my screen. Oh, you have to send me something to allow me to share.
We may need to get technical.
Where's Reggie?
I want a nice invitation.
Okay. Let me see here. Oh, wait.
Oh, let me see here. I just sent
Here
a
you go.
request. I think
Oh,
you.
Judge, 'cause she's.
There we go.
Woo. Okay.
I think that'll work.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
We should, I think I enabled it.
All right. So, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Very
Great. Great.
And doctor, is there a way, you know this better than I do, but is there a way while this is up here for you to use your cursor to point to anything on that, if possible?
Yes.
Oh,
Can you
good.
see my? Yeah.
Yes, we can see it, I think. Now, the first series of images here are very colorized images. Do you recognize those type of images?
Yes, it's a PET scan.
Okay. And is that a technology that you work with regularly?
I do not personally know.
Okay. As you go towards the bottom of these slides into the higher number of slides, do you come upon some black and white images that are double, an image that sits on the left and an image that sits on the right? Looks like it starts at slide 13.
Yes.
Okay.
That's up here now.
All right. Do you recognize those images?
Yes, those are scans from an MRI towards the top of the head.
Okay. So could you orient the jury as far as if we're looking at the brain, what direction we would be looking from when we're looking at these scans?
Sure. Well, in radiology, everything gets kind of turned around. So the left side of your screen of the image is actually the right side of the patient. So this is the front, this is the back, This is the left, and this is the right.
And these images, if a person was to look at the person's head, would these be images where the camera would basically have to be mounted somewhere within like the neck or somewhere within the body to take that? If you understand what I'm saying. I know that's not the way the MRI is taken, but.
Sure. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, what happens with doing a brain scan is you have essentially a smaller cylinder into which your head can fit, and it's like a little cage, if you will, and that serves as a receiver for the MRI signals, and that's how they're obtained.
Okay. What are these images showing?
Well, there's nothing abnormal on the image, first of all. It's a normal scan, and what we see here, this is the brain itself right here.
Okay.
So this stuff here is really is just the soft tissue and the skull bone, and this part of it here around the very periphery is just the subcutaneous fat, and that's all that is. Now, what we see in the image of the brain here is there are two different main colors that you can see. There's a whiter area over here, and there's some darker gray in the middle. Those are referred to as the gray matter and the white matter, respectively. And these, like for example, this area here would be, these certain areas of the brain control certain functions. So like this would be the motor cortex over here, where your arm and leg movements are controlled. So we can identify different regions, and we can look at and we have very good tissue contrast where you can see the difference between the gray and the white matter, as opposed to a CT, for example, where you really don't see that quite as well.
Okay. And the image on the, both images, why are they different? Are they different perspectives? Or are they a different type of MRI?
Well, they're all MRIs. MRIs are done routinely using, you actually don't take just one set of images with an MRI, you take multiple sets. And each of these has different settings on it. So it's sort of like having a camera and changing the lenses on it. You basically can look at different things with the MRI. And the colorization, the contrast, many things about the scan are different. These are actually, this is actually the same patient at exactly the same level, but just because the MRI was obtained using different settings, you get a different appearance of it.
Okay. Can we move to slide 14?
Yes.
All right. And this is going to be at a slightly different level of the brain than the previous slides?
Yes, it's a few centimeters, a couple of inches down from the top of the head towards the, sort of going towards the chin.
Okay. But these images are reflecting basically the same part of the anatomy, the same part of the head?
Yes.
Okay. And in the image on the right, again, concentrating on the material in the middle, the brain, there's this line going down the middle of those two halves. What is that?
This?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is called the falx, F-A-L-X. It is just simply a fibrous structure that separates the two hemispheres of the brain.
Okay. And is that normal in appearance?
Yes.
Is there anything in that image of the brain that is abnormal?
No.
Does the brain appear to be normal?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see any evidence of scar tissue or brain damage?
No.
And looking at the image on the left, Same questions. Do you see any evidence of scar tissue or brain damage?
No.
And if we can move to the next slide, 15. Looking at the image on the right, now we're at a slightly different level of the brain, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And in this image, same question, do you see any evidence of scar tissue or brain damage?
No.
Any evidence of any kind of impairment of any kind to the brain?
No.
In the image on the right, if you look at that dividing line in the middle, the falx, and you go to the right as you look at the image, and slightly up, if you can put your cursor just slightly up, there is a shadowy, like white in that gray area, kind of to the right, right there where you have your cursor. Is that anything that would reflect scar tissue?
No, that's normal. That's just all normal.
Okay. Can we move to the next slide, slide 16, Doctor? Now we're starting to see a different appearance to the brain here, a different appearance to the slides. Can you identify the anatomy that's now reflecting in the middle of the brain?
Right. So we're a little bit lower down in the brain here, probably through about the middle of the brain. And we have these two structures here, kind of like a C-shape, reverse C-shape. And these are called the cerebral ventricles. Those are fluid-filled spaces that contain cerebrospinal fluid, and cerebrospinal fluid covers the brain and the spinal cord, and it serves as an insulator, and it is formed in the brain, in the tissues of the brain, actually not in the actual brain substance, but in some of the tissues around it, and it's secreted into the ventricles, and it flows through the rest of the central nervous system.
Do you see anything in that image on the right or the image on the left that demonstrates or shows you any type of scar tissue or brain damage?
No, the studies are normal.
Okay. Can you move to the next slide, 17? And now we see a significantly different look here, or a different part of the anatomy. What are we looking at here? What is being shown in these MRIs?
So here is a slice that is through the lower portion of the brain. We're almost out of the brain here. And what you can see, this is the front, as I said, this is the face. This is actually part of the nose here. The two eyes are right there. And what we see in the brain here is part of this structure is called, these are called the temporal lobes. Those are one of the portions of the brain. And then in the back of the brain and lower down, there is this other structure, which is called the cerebellum. And we can see that there. And just in front of the cerebellum is what's called the brainstem. And these are the structures that are depicted here, and again, they are all normal.
You don't see any evidence of brain damage or any abnormality in those slides?
No.
If you could go to the image on the left and bring the cursor up to the interior or top portion of the right, nope, it would be to your left, the right temporal lobe. That would be the right temporal lobe that's reflected on the left in the image, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you go towards the top of the image, there are two black dots, those two right there.
Yeah.
What are those?
Those are just cortical veins.
And what are cortical veins?
Everybody has them. They're just, the veins basically return the arterial blood flows through the body, and then it flows into the veins. And as in the rest of the body, when blood flows into the brain, it has to go somewhere, so it leaves the brain through the veins.
In these images, the axonal, is there a thing known as an axonal flow? Is that an event or a thing?
Axonal flow would not be depicted on this study.
Okay. So these studies would not reveal a disruption in the axonal flow?
No, not based on this MRI image that you've asked me about, no.
Okay. And I think we're at 17. Is there a slide below 18?
No, that's
Okay.
18 is the last one.
All right. If we can go to the very top of the slides, to the number 1 and 2 slide. I know these are PET.
Yes.
If you could click on that. I just had a question for you, and I'm not going to ask you to interpret in any way this PET, but on the left-hand side of the image at about the 9 o'clock position, there is a red dot or like an orange circle.
Yes.
And my question to you is, and you would agree this is an image of the brain. You can say that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, let me see what the question is first.
Right. You do have some familiarity with PET, correct? PET scans?
Yes.
Generally, you know what they are and something about the technology?
Yes, I've reviewed PET scans, and I do it in when I have need to review, read a case, for example, and compare it to a previous study. I will look at the PET scans.
Okay. That area that I was pointing out to you at the 9 o'clock, if that small area of orange, if that was the only normally performing part of the brain and the whole remainder of the brain was brain damaged, what effect would that have on the person?
You know, I really can't answer that question. You know, it depends on the type of damage. It depends on so many different things. I just couldn't answer a question like that.
Okay, good enough. We may have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'll tell you the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Jimmy?
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
I think we've met before. You probably don't remember me, but I do remember you.
I do remember you, as a matter of fact.
Okay, very well. So you're a diagnostic radiologist, correct?
Yes.
And I think you had testified that the MRI, let me get my bearings here, the MRI DTI is fairly new in the diagnostic world.
Correct.
And you had indicated that it's been around for approximately, I think, 5 years, you said?
Well, again, I don't know the actual answer to that, but as I said, in my experience, yes.
Okay. And you're not a neurologist, right?
Correct.
But neurologists are able to read, I guess depending on their training and their experience, are able to read scans, images, things of that nature, right?
Well, they do read them. Honestly, I don't know whether they issue reports or bill for their scans the way radiologists do, but yes, they look at the scans, of course.
Okay. And usually the neurologist takes on a more hands-on position than a radiologist with the patient.
Sure, it's an entirely different role.
And so you act as more of a consultant to whomever you would be reading the scans for, right?
I didn't quite catch that. Sorry, could you?
Sure, I apologize.
Sure.
You consult with other physicians, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had any training on how to read MRI, DTI images?
Well, I have looked at them on many occasions, and I haven't, when I was in training, DTI didn't exist. So like many other things in radiology, when new technologies come about, you have to learn about them. And so I have done that. I haven't taken a formal course, if that's what you're referring to.
Approximately how many times have you been asked to read or review MRI, DTI scans or images?
Well, I've reviewed them on a number of occasions. I couldn't give you an exact number. It hasn't been that many, probably less than 100, I'm sure.
And am I correct in that you are unable to provide an opinion regarding the PET scans?
That's correct.
Okay. Is that a newer type of imaging since you first started? Is that why, or something different?
Well, let me say one thing about that. I am totally unfamiliar with the use of PET in evaluation of head trauma. I have never seen that in my practice. I asked a friend of mine who's a radiologist whether he ever heard of it. He had never heard of it either. So, yeah, I'm not offering an opinion on the PET scan because I don't do this specific type of scan. I've never really been asked to review those. But as I said, and I actually looked this up as well, whether PET is used in the setting of head trauma, and it's not. I mean, it is not one of the things that is recommended for evaluation of head trauma by the American College of Radiology. And, you know, I have to just say that I am not really going to offer a specific opinion on what the scan actually shows. But as far as whether it's utilized in clinical practice, in my experience, it has not been.
So you're indicating that you're not familiar with it being utilized in a clinical setting, but you would agree with me that PET scans have been routinely utilized in determining brain or traumatic brain injury in cases like this.
Well, again, I'm not familiar with the use of PET in evaluating brain trauma. PET is generally used for evaluating hypermetabolic areas in patients with cancer and things of that nature. But, yeah, I can't offer anything further on that.
So a neurologist using, you're indicating that a neurologist would not use or would never use a PET scan to determine whether or not someone has brain injury, or that's beyond the scope of your expertise?
Well, I'm not commenting on what neurologists should do or shouldn't do. I'm not here to offer a standard of care statement about the neurologist.
So you can't say whether or not that is standard or not standard because you're not a neurologist.
As I said, all I can say is that in my experience, I have never seen this done before. So you can take that for what you wish, but you know, I've been in practice for 40 years. I've seen a lot of scans.
Okay. If this wasn't a standard type of scan, would these radiology facilities be conducting these types of scans?
I can't speak for the radiology facility. I don't even know if this, I don't have any information about this. I don't even know if it was done at a radiology facility.
Now let's go to the MRI, DTI scans, which you can and did offer an opinion on. Let's start with 13.
Okay?
You would agree with me that really 13 through 17 would be paired sequences or paired scans, right?
Yes, correct.
One being diffusion weighted imaging, and the other
Yes.
one being like a flare. I guess it would be a different type of setting on the camera, as you indicated.
Yes,
And you had differentiated between the difference of white matter and gray matter, right?
yes,
Does not this scan show white matter that's deep inside the brain tissues is injured?
no,
No?
no,
Okay, let's go to 16, if you could. Would you agree with me that in slide 16, once again, we have the paired sequences of the diffusion weighted imaging and the flare 2 image, that the lateral ventricles are abnormally or notably enlarged?
that is absolutely false.
Okay. Which would indicate that there's really loss of brain tissue.
Absolutely incorrect.
Okay. Let's go to 17. Would you not agree with me? And once again, we're looking at two paired sequences of the diffusion weighted imaging and the flare 2 image, that there's, at least in this slide, that there's abnormal signals that are resonating in the images. Or at least,
There is no abnormal signal there.
okay. If I could have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Okay, very good. Redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, may this witness be excused?
You may.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. You're done testifying. I'm gonna close out the Zoom.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, very good. State, do you have an announcement?
Your Honor, the state